Well, Yvonne, it's been a pretty tumultuous 24 hours. Late yesterday, the votes started to come in after the election. The initial results that were coming through quite slowly seemed to indicate that the opposition parties, including the People's Alliance Party and the NFP, were doing fairly well, although it was very early days. But then towards the end of the night, some results came in that showed them doing, in some ways, spectacularly well, which caused quite the flurry of excitement. Not long after that, however, the app that is used to record the votes that are counted manually essentially was taken down. Now, there was a pretty extraordinary late-night press conference from the election supervisor, essentially saying that there were anomalies or glitches in the app, that data that was being recorded wasn't being fed correctly into it, which is why it was taken down. And then this morning, the more advanced votes that were being provisionally put out there showed Fiji first had gone back into the lead and was in a very strong position to once again form government, so a much weaker result for the opposition. Now, what we've seen today from the opposition is essentially a succession of fairly unusual press conferences with them casting aspersions upon the whole process. First of all, Mr. Rambuka, the head of the People's Alliance Party, coming out and saying he had no faith in the process and he was writing to the Electoral Commission and to the President. And then later in the afternoon, 4 opposition leaders, including Mr. Rambuka, all lining up to say that they wanted a formal recount, saying that they had no faith in the process, that they couldn't understand why their position had gone backwards after this so-called glitch. And in the case of Mr. Rambuka, even raising the extraordinary prospect of the military being asked to intervene. Now, Mr. Rambuka, who did, it has to be said, lead a coup back in 1987 in Fiji, was at pains to point out that he wasn't calling for a military coup, simply saying that he wanted the military commander to do his job under the Constitution, to express his view. But nonetheless, the fact that this prospect of a military intervention has been raised by a former coup leader is a cause of some unease and will be watched quite carefully, not just in Fiji, but in the broader region as well.
And has there been any reaction from international monitors?
Not really, no. The international monitors are watching very closely what's going on. We do expect that tomorrow international monitors will hold a press conference outlining their provisional view of the election, and that will, I presume, include the issues around the app and the difficulties that have been encountered there. But perhaps because they're in the middle of monitoring right now, they've maintained a very scrupulous silence. It will be interesting, however, to hear what they have to say tomorrow afternoon.
Stephen, what happens next and when might we expect a result?
Well, look, the vote will continue to be counted. Now, the opposition parties say they want the count essentially halted. They want to go back to the provisional count, somewhat confusingly. They say they have better access to the provisional count, they can cross-check it more effectively, and they'd like that count to be completed. But I'm not getting any sense from the election authorities here that they're willing to contemplate that. They say that would push it back, and it's completely unnecessary. Mohammed Saneem, the election supervisor, accused the other parties, or the opposition parties, of conspiracy theorising today, saying that the process was totally open, that it was available to all parties to look at, and he thought it was completely unreasonable for the parties to be making these sort of complaints, saying that they were essentially using the glitch in the act for political purposes. Now, I think the count is going to press ahead. I think we're likely to see, if you believe what the Election Commission says, a result within the next few days, most likely on Sunday. And after that, if it's very close, there may be a point where both parties or all parties have to try and negotiate to form a governing coalition. But they've already said, or the opposition parties have already said, that they are not willing, or they may not be willing to take part in the next parliament if their concerns are not addressed. So that does raise the spectre of political instability, not just in the coming days, but also in the coming weeks.
Stephen Dziedzic in Suva, thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne.